This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and MW Welman.
It's the Lekker Rugby Pod, and all we're talking about lately is our little social that we're going to have on Saturday before the game. So, Harry, you've come up with this little brainchild, which I think is going to be lekker. Just tell us about it.
Hey, I'm just having a beer with Rian. I don't know what happened. We started thinking about what could we do in the hours before the test. I don't know about you, but getting ready for a test, I feel like it's a responsibility. I mean, I'm already in game mode. For all of us, I don't care if you were trying to be on the fourth team at schools, or if you were like whatever you were trying to do. When it's test week, you have to put your best foot forward. You got to lift weights if that's your thing. You got to eat only meat. You got to do your push-ups, whatever, no sex or, nothing abnormal, whatever you need to do to get ready for the test. I think we're in that mode. So we started thinking, what are we doing from noon to 5, the test start, what the 5 hours, what are we doing? We don't want to just sit around, walking around in tents, schlepping bad beer. We wanted to go get some good beer under some trees at tables and then start inviting friends. And, listen, I'm not going to tell you a name drop, but we already have some very big, good, actual celebrities to join Rian and I, Rian Lowe, Ringo, from YouTube. So we have fake celebs like us, with I was the sixth best loose forward in Western Province in 1982. But they didn't like fetchers back then. Fetchers were for dog meat. So no, we're ready. I'm definitely in mode. We want to get together. We want to have a speech. Don't worry, guys, it'll be translated. Probably imperfectly. And like I said, just come join us. First 20 guys there, I got your beer, okay? 20. And that's women too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You're coming from America. You're paying in dollars. So yeah, 20 should be a breeze for you, I'm sure.
Little tiny cups.
Yeah. No draft, please. Small ones.
I'm going to buy 20 beers, put them in front of me. And if you don't drink them before I do, I've got them. So it doesn't always.
Challenge accepted. There we go. You'll have a look, and you're welcome to come and join us. Nothing fancy, just a good time with some friends before the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Harry, onto the game. I was going to quickly, before we go on, this is what we're going to talk about, people. We're going to talk about the Toulouse game, the Toulouse whitewash, you want to call it that. This, a bit of fond farewell to the Harris Index. It's now reached its final iteration, and your predictions were actually quite accurate, which irked me tremendously because my data-driven approach just didn't pan out at all. I'm going to spend a lot of time thinking about next year's index. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about the 4 games, starting with the Wallabies versus Australia, the All Blacks versus England. Then we're going to talk about the Boks, and lastly, we'll have a chat about what's going to happen down in Buenos Aires. So let's start. Toulouse, just basically, I don't know what the word is, assaulted Bordeaux, pulverized them. That's a good word. Nobody saw that coming, not in a final. What do you think?
Yeah, so you referenced the Harry Index. Thanks a lot. And I also like the fact that you're making irk, which is the name of the league, also now a verb. So it's almost like now forevermore, I'm going to think of irk as irking you. But Toulouse was clearly the front runner, right? And we knew it would have been an upset if Bordeaux had turned them over. What was an upset is how they folded and capitulated. But when we think about it, and you look at some of the minutes involved in top 14, and then you plug in the depth of Toulouse, you see that it's almost inevitable, right? So at the end, you have almost every player on the pitch has over 1,000 minutes. But the thing with Toulouse is they have a lot of like for likes. And so they can plug in just about anything. And if you are not even close at 55 or 60, like Leinster pushed them, they just roll over you in the final 30 because they just keep bringing people out that would start in test teams. And they have specific needs that, with all the money in the world, they can say, we need a Blair Kinghorn. Blair Kinghorn in and of himself is not going to change a game. But if that's your hole, you stick that in, your worst night, your worst deficit, it was unbelievable. Harry Index had Bordeaux poised, so they could have made some noise. The fact is they actually slipped down to 8th. But a mark of a good index doesn't change too much depending on, any one given weekend. That was an anomaly because Bordeaux was so bad that it made us revise, I call it in Harry Index like it made us revise the order. And so it ended up being Toulouse, Blues. I would love to see the Blues play Toulouse. I would love to see that. And the Blues problem would be the final 20, by the way, because the first 15, I think, matches up perfectly. Glasgow, then Bulls, Leinster. Leinster comes back into top 5. Saints, Munster, Bordeaux, Stade Francais, and La Rochelle. So basically 4-4 from ERC and top 14, and 1 each from Prem and Super Rugby. And, we can draw a line now through it. That was one of the great seasons, Toulouse. I'm not diminishing when I say they have all the money. They just have all the money. So they can actually go get Jack Willis, who's the best loose forward in England, not playing Test rugby. And, it just seems a little bit unfair on some level. But for the French love club. The French love club rugby more than they love Test rugby. And we'll get into that in a second when we talk about the teams for these tests, because they just don't care that much about Test rugby. Club rugby, when you look at the crowds that were there in Marseille to watch Toulouse play Bordeaux, it was insane. It was just like a World Cup final for them.
I wanted to ask you this. I see the one of the things that my approach was flawed in was the fact that the French guys played so many games, and the Super Rugby guys only played 14 or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
The French guys plays over 30. And I see apparently the next top 14 starts on Monday. I don't know. They seem to be playing forever, but I'm joking about that. But the point is, it's just a ridiculous amount of rugby. Is that sustainable? I mean, even a guy like Dupont, I mean, he's going to play in the Olympics. He's played for the French team. He played for Toulouse. An interesting thing, he didn't play for the French team so he can be prepared for the Olympics. But a month before the Olympics, he plays in the top 14 final. That doesn't make any sense to me either. There just seems to be too much rugby there.
It's club over country, though. Like, Dupont has missed many test matches but he would never have done that for Toulouse. Never, ever would he have done that, because club is more important. That's where the pay comes from. That's where the secret house and the extra car and the maid and the cook, it's all from the club. Now, listen, not only do they play 30 matches to the top 14, they actually play that Champions Cup, which is an additional league. So you're looking at the only South African player that I can think of recently that was not playing in France that had equal workload was Jasper Wiese, just because he played almost every minute for Leicester. He played almost every minute for Boks. I forget which year it was. And that was the only way you could equal a French player, is to play every test and every minute for your club. But no, if the French players play all the minutes, they get a lot of injuries. You look at a guy like Anthony Delonche, or you look at what happened to Marchand, and then you lose your place. There's always another guy in the French system. Is it sustainable? It's the only league that's making money. So, I mean, like really real money. So maybe that's the way you have to do it. To do it, you then have to have a 30-man squad, a 35-man squad. You've got to share the minutes. You have to have an entire platoon system. And it's not feasible for a team like the Bulls or the Stormers, who are essentially a farm club with some of their best great legends playing abroad. That's just the way it is.
I'm glad you brought up the Bulls. I never let an opportunity slip by to bring the Bulls into the conversation. And I said to you earlier this week on a WhatsApp, and I said to you, listen, Leinster managed to keep Toulouse to 90 minutes, before they lost in the extra time and everything else. And if they got that drop goal over, which anybody else, a proper fly-off Irish fans, would have got over.
A totally different conversation. If the drop goal was over, we're all having a different conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is Toulouse was held by Leinster for a long time and almost lost it there. And the Bulls beat Leinster. There we go. That tells you everything you need to know about where.
I love that kind of logic people use. Oh, so I beat you. Like, I try that out in, like, I don't know, any walk of life. At the end, it's who's standing in the final, just like the Boks and the All Blacks in the World Cup final. It's you got to get there. You got to get to the final somehow. Yeah.
There was a lot of noise this week about Jake White's press conference. And you and I had a very interesting conversation about Jake about 2 weeks ago, about the fact that I always mellowed and everything. And the one thing I picked up when I had this conversation in my mind about you and I talked about is the fact that he was so disappointed about not having used this opportunity to leave a legacy. And I think that's what that press conference can be attributed to, that disappointment about not having finished up, cross the T's and dotted the I's, just to make, bring the final point home. I think that's what that was about more than anything else.
Yeah, he's been around so long, he knows that nothing is guaranteed. So you get to a final, you have it at your home, you got to win that thing. You got to find a way to win it, because you just never know. Injuries can happen. Another team gets better. The referees change the way they look at something, whatever. And you don't know. You look back 5 years later, and Goosen's gone. LaRue's gone. You know, you have a different complexion. So it was sitting pretty. I always go back a little bit, not as a Bulls fan per se, but as a South African fan. Always go back and wonder about that LaRue head knock and just go, You know, it just seemed obviously late, wrong, and it just at the time it just, you know, it sticks in your craw. And yeah, I don't know. I think maybe sometimes if you ref things harder in the first 30 minutes, then everything goes better, and then you don't have as many. I think when you encourage players to hit late and hit high by not coming down harshly enough, you end up having more. This is my argument about.
Of course,
it's like teachers in school. You know, the substitute comes in and they're not tough at first, and then you run all over them. You know, pretty soon people have their pants over their heads and running around, you know, going crazy. So you have to come in and just be harsh. And I prefer the refs who come in first 30 minutes, first 20 minutes and blow everything, and then maybe Willie's on the field, and then I think it's a different final.
I'm glad you mentioned the harshness, and I want to feature a shameless plug here. I had a conversation with Frankie Smith on our channel. I'll put the link up here. And he said one of the things, and I asked him, listen, you're an Afrikaans boykie with a Cheetahs and a Bulls background, and you played a bit in Italy and the likes, but you now pitch up in Scotland. It's dark and it's cold and it's wet. Those were his words. He said, how on earth did you get those guys to buy into your philosophy and your personality and everything else? He said, it was tough because you had to be very harsh in the beginning, because he said they were unfit, they were untrained. They lost by 70 points in the last game against Leinster under the previous dispensation. So that was quite an interesting conversation, you know, like you just said, lay down the law right in the beginning and everything else will fall into place. If you relax in the beginning, whether you're a coach or a ref, things will go south, and it's inevitable. That's human nature.
Yeah. No, I think it's setting a tone. What did he say to you? Did you get into how he was able to get his boys to sort of relax, enjoy the moment, dispel the idea of altitude? I mean, you cannot make altitude go away, but you can kind of stop talking about it. It's like if it's hot, if you keep saying it's hot, then it feels hotter. You know, you kind of just forget it.
He said what he did was he decided you have one of two approaches. You can either treat it as nothing, or you can treat it as something. And he decided to treat it as something. So November last year, he got a breathing coach into their squad. So every training session, before and after training, they did breathing exercises and push the guys to the limit so they can experience what it feels like to run out of breath and realize that you're not going to die. Those were his words. I'm not going to die. I'm just going to be tired. And that's how they got over it, because he realized right in the beginning when he analyzed the season that the games against the Bulls and the Lions here in South Africa were going to be pivotal. And we lost both of them. But the team got the belief that they should have got because of the fact that they didn't die, and they managed to push through this altitude thing. So he actually made a plan for it. It's quite interesting. And he's a thinker. And I'm telling you now, I said it before, very strong rumors going around that he might be, you know, succeeding Jake, or if not Jake, then Rassie. This guy is impressive, I'm telling you.
It's really interesting around the world of sport as coaching becomes more and more analytical and multidisciplinary, that a lot of the coaches are realizing they got to prove things to their players. And they got to show them stuff. It's not enough to just say, like, I'm the oracle of wisdom and I'm a, you know, famous coach, and then you just run through a wall for me and you know, go, you know, whatever, go full blown old school. Nowadays, it's about proving things. And I love that idea of saying, okay, we lost, but I proved to you that you didn't die. I proved to you that you can go to that edge. I proved to you that you're a young man and you went to that edge. What if you went a little bit more? I think that's really good coaching. I think that's what a lot of the top coaches like Andy Farrell in Ireland does. You know, they were not getting to the rucks before, even under Schmidt. And there's something changed where the same players were just giving you a little bit more. That's a lot more economical than finding new players. That's a lot more efficient than inventing a new scheme. What if I got 2% out of everyone?
Another extra thing I asked him is, he coached the Cheetahs in Super Rugby. And now he's been in the Italian system. He was Italy's performance director. That means the big man. And I asked him about why he left the Italian job for the Glasgow job. That's quite an interesting thing to talk about as well. I asked him what does he think is the best league? Super Rugby, Premiership, URC, or Top 14? And he said, by far, URC. He says no other league gets close to it, because Super Rugby is very flashy, about offloads and entertainment. You want to draw the crowds, make it flashy. Top 14 is a grind, like we just discussed now. He said Premiership is like Test Rugby. It's hard. All it's about is how tough it can be. And he says URC is the best mix of different styles, different countries. different philosophies coming together, and the players are getting better. And he specifically said, I asked him about the fact that they took the Bulls on their strong points, the line out, the driving maul, and everything else. And he said he believes in fighting fire with fire, and those were his exact words. And he said the only way you can fight fire with fire is if your fire is strong enough. He had to teach his players to become physical enough to attack to tackle the Bulls on the strong points. And he said that's a main difference that the South African teams made to the URC. They brought that physicality that these guys overseas were not used to. And he said that's the reason why the Stormers and the Bulls played in the final of the first season, because nobody was used to the physicality. They've now caught up and even surpassed some of these South African teams. So that's why the URC is, for me, I agree with him, is by far the best league in the world.
So what I found, and I know it's somewhat of a joke, the Harry Index, in the sense that it's funny that it's objectively subjective. But what I found is if you had to take 5 teams and you had to take 5 best teams from every comp, the ERC would be the best. Because you could put your hand around those 5 teams immediately and name them: Munster, Leinster, Bulls, Stormers, Glasgow. Maybe if you took on talent, you'd grab the Sharks. If you do the same thing in top 14, you realize what happens in a capitalist system that's not sufficiently regulated, not socialized enough, because it's all in one country. And so there's always going to be the rich get richer. So Toulouse is just going to continue. Like, it's like the idea where you can never catch them. Like, you could be Po, or you could be Oyonnax, or you could be Grenoble. You're just never going to catch that. Whereas how the ERC set up is within each country, you could have 2, maybe 3 teams get good enough where the whole is really good. So I think that makes sense to me. It reminds me of this old apocryphal story of near the end of the Soviet Empire, and it was glasnost, perestroika, and Russia was realizing they were so far behind on car manufacturers, so they sent their best apparatchiks to Japan and say, hey, go visit Toyota plants and see how they're doing things. Want to catch up. This is like late 80s, early 90s. So the Russian guys walking around for 2 weeks with the Toyota guys and studying everything. And near the end, he takes his counterpart aside from Japan. The Russian guy says, how far, to be honest, how far are we behind? And the Japanese guy says, forever. You are forever behind. You're never going to catch us. It doesn't matter what you do. So I think that's the problem with top 14. It's just, you're going to see the same 3 teams over and over and over. It's kind of fun to watch, actually, but doesn't really make a good league. I think ERCs, either they did it by design or they're just lucky. It's a beautiful time in Irish rugby. If the ERC had formed 10 years ago, you wouldn't say that, right? But now you have Ireland on top. You have Scottish people really getting into their, rugby, and then you have these like rivalries forming between South Scots and Irish. I don't know what the Welsh are going to do. So that's something that we'll have to think about later. Yeah.
Well, I think we've talked enough about the domestic stuff now, and Harry's Index has proven its worth. I doffed my cap at you to admit my defeat. I told you afterwards, I said, okay, I can see the sense behind it. I don't understand your algorithm, apparently, what somebody called it, the Harry algorithm, but it makes sense. Intuitively, it made sense, with the benefit of hindsight, as it does. But yeah,
it's an algorithm. It's not an algorithm, man. I just call it
I like it. That sounds about right to me. Now it's time to talk about the test stuff now. And the first one is Wales versus Australia. And this is sort of a battle of the old men, but the new men. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Joe Schmidt has been around the block a couple of times, never in Australian capacity, though. And Warren Gatland is once again being tasked with resurrecting Welsh rugby. And they brought out this little master plan of theirs. Just seems to be going nowhere this week. Wales rugby in disarray, I would think. Now, see, they're talking about maybe joining England again, but England won't have them. Maybe they'll be lucky to get into the championship because they want fuller stadiums. Just as a brief aside, what do you think of that future plan for Wales?
So it's interesting. You look at the actual balance sheets of Welsh rugby, they have plenty of money. It's actually a very interesting tale. But the money is entitled and spoken for. It goes to small, tiny clubs all over the place, unpronounceable names. A place like Neath, that you barely know about, is where they actually signed the first constitution of rugby in Wales. but it's spoken for. So the money is dissipating for all those people who keep saying grassroots. No, really. You need a central planning organization in some way, or you need unbelievable talent like South Africa to get around the bad administration. But if you're going to have to take a small population with not a lot of big winter power athletes and make that thing work, Wales has to have a complete upheaval. I mean, the money has to be a lot more at top level. That's where 80% of revenue is created in our unions, is at test rugby. It's principalities, game day, that's where you get it from. And so, but instead in Wales, like 80% of that stuff is going to, third level fat guys running around in the mud. It's not going to work. So if you're a really top player, you ended up going, you're leaving. Will Rowlands is playing in the French leagues now. He was their best forward. And so then, I just don't know if they can get better. Could they join the Anglo-Welsh League again? I could see the point. I could see why England would want that, actually, because they're having trouble keeping their clubs afloat.
Do you think they'd want it in the Premiership?
So the Premiership is leaking, right? You look at the balance sheets there, and it's the opposite problem of Wales. They have fat cat rich guys in cranberry chinos with their Jags, and they just like having a team on the side to support their mining, portfolio. And this is like, hey, invite my friends over to go play, to watch a game at Bath. It's not sustainable because you're never really sure that you're always going to have that many capitalists ready to put down 7 million, 10 million, 14 million pounds a season of loss. The Welsh would bring in real money. It's, and it's the travel's nothing. So I don't know. I could see it working. I could also see Wales trying to solve their problems by continuing to run away from every competition. And in the end, it's just the fact that it's somewhat of a subsiding country. It's not growing. Industrial base is not growing there. It's a cautionary tale.
Well, ask the Stormers now. They had 200 odd clubs running the show. They're taking all the money, and a little bit of a crooked administrator that just basically got into administration. And if it wasn't for SA Rugby, they wouldn't have been existing anymore. Now they've got a nice investor. I'm sorry. Things are looking up a little bit, but it was touch and go there for a bit. So Welsh Rugby might just go the same route.
Yeah, no, it's true. We haven't really solved, rugby hasn't been fully professional for that long, and we're not really out of the woods yet on whether we can do it. It's a big sport. It's got a lot of people in it. But if it goes well, like in the French leagues, there's, what do they say? There's 300 coaching jobs, people employed. That you've got to have a base of people who can pay you to do rugby. Otherwise, you end up having your coaches and people spread all over the world like South Africa does.
You wrote an article for The Raw about Joe Schmidt. You said the pragmatist replacing the pugilist. Eddie Jones being the pugilist and Joe Schmidt being the more dour, almost like me, level-headed person. that seems to be the difference between the two. You said no sentiment. He just makes the right choice. He doesn't like people being differing from him. He doesn't like being told off or somebody having a better idea than him. Is that idea going to work in Australia? That seems to be a little bit of a more loose culture, if I want to call it that, compared to New Zealand.
That's a fair comment. However, inside the Australian rugby universe, a lot of it is Tongan, Samoan, Fijian boys that, their families moved to Melbourne, to Sydney. So it's a little more respectful of authority. They generally are a very respectful group community in general. They'll follow. And then the sort of quintessential Aussie boys, the skateboarders, the surfer boys, and some of the farm boys from Queensland. You know what? It's just a terrible time. They want to resurrect something. So you would think that Joe's going to get a pretty long honeymoon and the benefit of the doubt if these early matches go well. And when I say go well, they just have to go better. They don't. Wales beat Australia 40-6 in Lyon in the pool match that effectively knocked them out. So if this was Eddie still coaching, it'd be like a revenge match. I've called that the revenge series. But Joe won't even really go there. Joe is all about internal excellency. He's all about grading each player and ripping up each player's performance. And so that on Monday, he sits down and shows them, here you were shit, here you were good, here you were okay. Just play by play by play. And then he says, Next week, I need you to be, this much better and here and there. And he tells players who are on the bubble or not selected why. Hey, Harry Wilson, I need you to hit more rucks on the defensive side. You're hitting the offensive rucks, but not the defensive rucks. He'll really tell you these kind of things. So it's very specific. So it might not have as big difference in the first 2 or 3 tests, but he's always looking for longer term. And he sticks with people. CJ Stander, Devin Toner. He stuck with Devin Toner when everyone said he was done. Rob Carney. He just doesn't throw you away. He's like, I'm going to work with you. There might be someone out there that can jump higher, go quicker, and do something more spectacular in the highlights. But I'm going to tell you, you've got 10 tests to prove yourself to me. That kind of buy-in, yeah, I think it works anywhere.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. They need someone to unite behind, to lead them out of this mess that they find themselves in. And I think that's the kind of guy that you want. You don't want an Eddie Jones who goes off at journalists. I met Ken Borland the other day, the guy that Eddie said to you, don't be a smart ass. Remember? He's one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And Eddie was just, flaying him, laying into him. I just thought leaves such a bad taste. I don't want that. And I like the idea of what you just said. But he's got his challenges. I mean, he selected Kurtley Beale in the group, and then Len Ikita, both injured, seems to be.
Yeah, I looked at the teams and just kind of said, your first choice from 2023, and then now what do you have in the squad now? And looks like Australia has still a pretty good spine, but all the back line's gone. Marky Mark, Bataya, Karevi, Korobete, they're out. And it's uncertain who the 10 is. So you could say the back line of Australia, which is usually one of their strengths, is an upheaval. But the pack that's pretty much the pack, absent Angus Bell. And then on Wales, you have only 4 guys. Like they're nobody. There is no one left from that. So you look at 2 teams that are coming in with a lot of unknowns. I know you love Taylor Swift. Someone told me that. If you looked at 2 songs by Taylor Swift, yeah. So for Australia, it'd be Shake It Off, baby, and then move on. Yeah. And if you were for Wales, it'd be Blank Space. Like we literally are looking at a team where we don't even know the players. You will watch this game and have to consult something to see. Maybe even the announcers will not know who's who. So it's the perfect start for Joe Schmidt. This is, home ground, should catch Wales a little bit napping and then put them to bed. It's the second test that I think would be more illustrative. That's where we'll learn more, because Warren's a good adjustment coach. He will usually look at a game and then be able to adjust well the second game. But I would look for this first one to be kind of ugly. I think Wallabies will do something pretty good, and then they'll be way too excited about it. All the fans will go crazy, and they'll come back down to earth in the second test.
Just one thing, Will Skelton is not there, is he?
No. So Joe is doing something kind of interesting in that he's picking only domestically based players, just as almost like what's it called? Like an empirical test. Like, let's see on a lab experiment, like what can we do with this? And then kind of like Toulouse, let's add the few pieces we need instead of trying to do it up front. And if you're playing Wales and Georgia, you should be able to do that. I mean, with all of Australia's problems, if you look at a team sheet of Australian players, top 20 players, top 23 players, there's plenty of talent.
I just wanted to ask you one thing in terms of Wales before we move on to our predictions. Ospreys were the dominant team in the UFC, in the ERC. They did exceptionally well. I mean, they qualified in the top 8. Sure. But they've got the fewest players in the squad. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's a bit like when there's the Oscars and they say there's the best film, and then the guy doesn't win the best director. It's different, right? Test rugby, you're looking at some metrics there. You're looking at, if I created a break, who would be the best one to finish it? And that's sometimes just raw speed. Or they may have access to repeatable bench press, like how many 120s can you get up in a defined period? Or like Makazole Mapimpi apparently doesn't have any lactic acid, like he's one of those mutants that doesn't develop them. So his chase at minute 79 is the same as, so, sometimes you don't look at the domestic success and you just say, it'll be mostly this kind of player, but then we're going to have a few people that are rare talents. A guy like Bundi Aki plays for Connacht. So they're never going to be that good, but he's you're right, his name in the 12 immediately.
Okay, before we talk about England versus the All Blacks, what's your thoughts? Who's gonna take this one, Wales or Australia?
I think Wales will struggle in the first test, probably lose by 2 converted tries ish, 14, 15, 16 points. I think the next test I think it's Melbourne, will be a tougher one.
Yeah, I don't know. Wales weren't that bad last week against the Boks for the young team that they are. Like you said, we don't know any of the names, and Australia is basically starting from scratch. I think it's going to be Australia, but it's going to be closer. We'll see what it says.
I think that type of arm wrestle, by the way, works better against the Boks, especially if you have a young 10 coming in. I think Australia kind of likes that. I think that'll be punished. That's why I think it's going to be an odd result for everyone.
Okay. Well, what did you called the previous one the revenge test? Now, what did you call this test? The All Blacks versus England. What's your name for this one?
So they all have an RE kind of C name: rectification, recreation, revenge. This one's called the rectal exam test. England is going to be seriously hurt and battered by the All Blacks. There's been a lot of disrespect about All Blacks for about 2 years now. It's because people aren't watching. And do you think that a century of incredible excellence in All Blacks was accomplished because, they played in England or under French TVs? No, All Blacks have always been quietly building their craziness down there. And when they unleash on you, it wasn't that long ago the Boks just got a hiding in New Zealand and went on to win the World Cup. I'm just saying they can put more points on you quicker than any team out there. There's been a lot of adulation of Antoine Dupont, and that's probably well deserved. But the All Blacks are still a mean team. When you play them in New Zealand, they can be very mean. Dunedin first and then Eden Park next. I think England ships a lot of points. You look at their back line, it's all changed. Those systems are hard to erect against a team like the All Blacks. They find little wrinkles. They come smashing at you. Caleb Clark, Mark Tillea, they're untackleable, like when they have any space at all. And they just finish. You're going to have people like Bowden Barrett, directing things from the back. You're going to have some new faces for people, and they're not going to be ready for it. I think England's going to have a rude awakening. So I call it the rectal exam. England loses to New Zealand by plenty. If it was Taylor Swift, I would say you need to calm down, England. You need to calm down. There's been a lot of talking up of England. This is going to be a mean awakening.
Well, I'm one of the talker-uppers for the simple reason that everything in New Zealand is new. It's a new coach, it's a new team, a new captain, a new livery, new clothing. Is there going to be a new game plan? Nobody knows what to expect. They're going to play like the Blues or like the Hurricanes or like the Chiefs. I mean, who said that of the England squad this week said? We don't know what to expect mostly because they can play any one of these different types of games. The point is, are they going to gel in the very first test? And I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. I mean, to play New Zealand in New Zealand is never an easy thing, but I mean, they're a bit more vulnerable, in my opinion, than they would normally be, settled under a Steve Hansen or a Game Henry. I'm not going to say Ian Foster, but the point is that they've always had a long-standing coach and a long-standing things that game plans, everything. This is complete upheaval to a degree. Even a new captain, like I said. I don't know if he can make the Wolf the Afrikaans saying, moet nie die wolf skaapwagter maak nie. Make the wolf the sheep shepherd, That's kind of a thing. It's like by making Bakkies Botha the Springbok captain kind of a thing is what I see there. I don't know. I've got a couple of question marks, honestly.
Yeah. I guess you don't get any more cohesive than having 3 brothers in your team. And these Maori players and mixed with Fijian and Tongan and Samoan players that form, the backbone of an All Black team, with a really mighty scrum. I actually think England's going to get scrummed off the park with these old props they keep throwing in there. They just got to move on from Dan Cole. Are you telling me there's no one in England that can scrum besides Dan Cole? Look for Ethan de Groot with a good proper prop name to make Dan Cole look really small. He'll be Dan the Klein. I really think it's going to start at set piece and get worse. But I think when they're off to the races, Six Nations is a bad measuring stick nowadays. It's Six Nations is like two nations. So I think All Blacks are going to be a whole different group for these guys to face. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'll eat crow.
Well, I tell you what, Felix Jones being in the England coaching squad there, to me, is much more important than we give him credit for. I think he might make a big difference there. I know he was attack coach for the Boks, but you saw the kind of attention to detail that he brings to the team. And I can see that making a difference. They've been fairly settled. Like you said, they've got a bit of an unsettled backline. But the point is they've been around for a long time. They're starting to settle into the patterns now. They're coming up to a completely, I don't want to call it team in disarray. It's not true. They are the All Blacks after all. But I just think if ever there was a chance to beat England, beat the All Blacks in New Zealand, this is going to be the one. Next test, I don't see that. It's not going to happen.
This is good. I like that we have a difference of opinion on this one because it's going to be really intriguing. I mean, we don't know. I think Felix Jones is an incredible coach, but he had athletes to work with. Now he's got George Furbank. I don't know. There's no swivel hips in that guy. His hips are fixed.
Yeah, he's not a lekker back.
I think all the England the back three needs to put scrum caps on. Then they have a hope.
It's like a magic. It's like a cape. I told you the other day. It's like put your cape on. No, it's an interesting. I wanted to ask you. I asked you about Brent Russell wearing gloves. Does that make him an honorary lekker back, a retrospective lekker back?
It's got to be on the head. On the cop, on the cop.
Yeah, and I get it. It's the most pointless thing in rugby, but at the same time, the most significant thing, if you want to call it that.
It's kind of superstitious, probably. Mm-hmm. Do you have any superstitions before game day? Like as you look for this first Bok test, I have bundles of superstitions, and I've carried them on for decades before Bok test. Do you have anything that you must do or you try to avoid? Like things you have to eat or...
You know what? I'm a typical South African. I like to downplay things. I like being the underdog. Don't like hearing that we're going to beat them and whatever. I don't like that. I tune that out.
So that's a superstition. You like to be an underdog. You like to talk it up. Yeah. Talk it down.
I talk it down. So lower expectations. So under promise and over deliver.
We're just lucky to be here. We hope we can give the Irish a good game. Yeah, I like it. That's a superstition.
I like it.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I'll see what I feel like next Saturday after we've raided the beer barrel inventory there. But I might feel a little different then. Anyway, okay. So your prediction is England going to take a big hiding. You said by plenty or by 20.
I think the All Blacks score 40, 45, maybe even 50. It's one of those days where it's just horrible. It's under the roof, dry track. Everyone's off to the races. Caleb Clark is, just standing over Ben Earl and laughing at him.
All right, so it's going to be a big swing if we manage to pull that off. By we mean England. But I think we're going to make England's going to make it, not we. I can never be a we with England's concerned.
Yeah, what are you doing, man? No, that's horrible.
I mean, this is like traitorous talk here. Forgive me for I have sinned. Let's leave it there. I think
your ancestors are rolling over.
No, I mean more than that. They're standing up, coming to haunt me tonight. Long history there. But no, I think England is going to take it close, very close. But only in the first game. Afterwards, it's going to be All Blacks all the way.
I cannot wait for this test now. I'm like really let's lace it up and get Smash Mouth rugby going.
Okay, now we've talked about enough rubbish now. Let's talk about proper rugby. And that's the third game of the weekend. Your name for this series again was the?
Rectification. It's basically what Rassie has called it. He wants to rectify the record. And I get what he's saying is there's an anomaly here. There's the only real list of results from 2014 to now that just looks wrong. Why are the Irish owning us? This is terrible. It has to be rectified. I get it. No, so I think Taylor Swift. I'm gonna go T Swift on this one, and for me, it's I knew you were trouble when you walked in. That's Rassie. He's a trouble boy, bad boy, good boy, bad boy, and I think he wants to. I think he's really got a taste for this. He's going on early with his trolling. He's picking the team. He's being really ridiculous. Yeah. I know you tried to retro-engineer his team because he put out a number of caps and weights, and you could literally try to figure out who it was. But also for Taylor Swift's song for Ireland, I would say Bad Blood. There's bad blood between these two teams. Come on, let's be honest. Even Elizabeth went on and said it. So.
I said it. This is the new rivalry in world rugby. Yeah, the All Blacks are the historical rivals, but these are the new rivals. Seems to be a lot of niggle there. And Rassie is very happy to sit back and fan the flames, like you said. Predicting what the Irish team is going to be like. I don't know what the problem with the Irish flag icon there or emoji is. Why is it the wrong flag? Forgive my ignorance. I'm sure Rassie doesn't know either. Why is it the wrong flag?
So Ireland is always, so it's two nations, right? For rugby purposes, they are united, but obviously part of Irish rugby is Great Britain. I mean, is British because it's Northern Ireland. So I think maybe Rassie was actually being correct. I don't know, but all I know is he's trying to get under their skins. I'll say this, you can tell that Ireland knows that, and they're really trying to keep everything under a lid. Andy Farrell's a flippin' good coach. Flippin' Farrell, he's really got his troops under control. I want to also say thank you to the Irish coaches. I want to say this sincerely, that they brought a proper team. They didn't do any kind of, well, let's these guys have played a lot of rugby, let's do some refreshment, let's look at some young guys. That would have changed it from a rectification test to, you know, something that was kind of like what the French are doing, going to Argentina with none of their actual players that were first choice in 2023. So Farrell and Mike the Farrell Cat, Jonah's Roadkill have brought a proper team. The only people out of the team are Gibson Park, Sexton, Hansen, and Keenan. That's the only four guys out. Two of them retired. One of them retired and two are injury and one's playing seven. So they got their best team out there. This feels like the most important test in a long time. It feels like the most important test since the last time the Boks played.
Yeah, but those two names that you mentioned, the one retiree and the one injury,
it's a big thing.
It's huge. It's huge. They haven't found a replacement for Sexton yet.
And also, if you combine this, that since 2015, and I've gone back and checked this as long, I've been trying to do it really well, but less than 30 minutes on the park for Handré Pollard against Ireland. He's only played 28 minutes of rugby against the Irish national team since 2015. And think about a lot of those results and how they might have been different. I'm not making excuses. Everyone loses players. But it is one, if you say, I'll take Sexton out and put Crowley in, and then I'll take whoever, Elton Yankees, Manny Leboeck, and I'll stick Pollard in. That's a net 10-point swing. I don't know.
Easy. No, easy.
Yeah.
And Gibson Park as well. We saw what he could do. Loftus against the Bulls. That first half, he was in the game. He was sort of controlling it. That's when really they were still in the game. But after that, and without him there, I don't know. Ireland is a big setback for them.
Gibson Park in Test rugby has been the best scrum off in the Northern Hemisphere. DuPont has been the best club scrum off. But when you look at their head-to-heads in Six Nations, when you look at the really big matches they played, Gibson Park has had his number. And he's a quiet guy, right? He doesn't have a lot of social media. He's got a comb over. He's losing some hair. He's not as pretty. But listen, Gibson Park is an operator. So now you're going back to the future with Connor Murray, or you're going with the little kid, Craig Casey, the tiny boy. So that's probably a weakness. What do you think Rassie will do with that? We always attack the 9, right? That's why DuPont wasn't as good in the quarterfinal as he was projected to be, because they were in his face. He got scragged by Ibn Etzebeth a couple of times. I would think this match will be won and lost right there, right? 9 and 10.
Well, I don't know. I was so focused on trying to get to reverse engineer Rassie's. I didn't think about that side of things.
Have you retro engineered the pack? Do you know who our pack is?
The pack's, I think, fairly obvious. It's going to be starting pack, Ox and Marks and Frans Malherbe, Buffalo, Eben and Sous, Franco Moster, CEO, Captain 6, Peter Steff, and I think Quagga Smith will start rather than Roos. I think is going to be the pack, But what is interesting to me...
Why Quagga at 8 instead of Roos, or, a big body 8?
World Cup last year. I think that just made the difference to me. A bit of a fetcher. If Sia's not in shape as he was alleged or accused of being, you're going to need someone else who can, go after the ball, the bit of a fetcher. I don't know, just the feeling that I got.
That's a quick pack. So that's a quick pack, and it also means that the Irish would have a bigger pack. And maybe at Loftus, this is kind of a plan. Let's run them around instead. It's like a flip of the script of what usually happens with Boks teams.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Remember, the Boks have been training up here for weeks now at Loftus, at the Loft B field. So whatever happened, they definitely acclimatized by now. I don't think it's going to be an issue.
No. I mean, positively, like Quagga at 8 against Kalen Doris, and then you got Peter Omani slowing down a little bit up against.
Oh, we don't think of him off their feet.
Yeah, almost like a flip the script where, like, in the end, if you watch the headlines, it'd be like the Boks ran Irish off their feet at Loftus, which would be interesting.
Yeah, that I can see. I thought you would talk the other way around, that they might be tiring us out. No, I think part of the reason why they were training here is exactly for that. Get them accustomed to it. I mean, acclimatized, and they've been here the whole time.
So then do you think they bring Ruiz off of the bench and try to run downhill?
Yeah. That's my conundrum. If it's going to be Ruiz or if it's going to be a Dixon, a 7/lock. That's my thing. And then I try to fit it into the caps and the age, trying to get to the Rassie's numbers here, and it doesn't make sense. One thing I can tell you that I did pick up, it's going to be a young team. And my prediction, and this is going to go out before the team is announced, is going to be Sasha is going to play a very, very big role. It's going to be a 60 split. And I think whoever's going to be the forwards is going to be a Sasha and a Grant Williams at the back. My prediction.
That's some speed right there. So I think the idea of speed is interesting when you look at the Irish team and you actually drill down and say Jimmy O'Brien and you have Crowley, Frawley. There's some people. Ringrose is not the quickest guy. He's quick going forward, but not back. James Lowe's a bit of a battleship. It's hard to turn him around sometimes. It seems like quick with Kirtley and Cheslin and then Villy making them quick with the passes that he throws, not necessarily being foot speed. It looks like a pace game. I really think what's shaping up here is welcome to Loftus. We're going to go to the races, a little bit like Wallabies 1 year ago.
Well, the one thing, if you say it's going to be a pace thing, the Tony Brown name starts flashing in neon lights here. That's what they're going to do. They're going to be fast. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about next. There are lots of rumors here that Marnie's going to start the match. And I want to say this prediction, Marnie's not even going to be on the bench. It's going to be Pollard starting and Sasha coming in off the bench. That's my prediction. Marnie's not going to start.
It's a rectification test. Rassie said rectify, and he looks nailed on. Like he's thinking of this as not only a final, a World Cup, a knockout. It's a Pollard test written all over it. Come back to his home ground. Only had 30 minutes in a decade against Ireland. Give Pollard 60, 70 minutes against the nemesis and see what he does. He's always been able to figure out teams like Ireland. He's never gotten a shot. Why would you want to have Pollard have a long Bok career and never have any Irish tests? It's ridiculous,
Yeah, well, even beat Ireland for that matter. No, there's, like you said, there's a lot of niggle after that test. See you in the final. That hurt a little bit. Whether it's been blown out of proportion a bit, I don't know. But the point is, there is something there.
Hey, on that, I was in the stands, right? And I was surrounded by Irish guys, some of the biggest Irish guys I saw in my life, and they're all around me. That's what they all said to me. I mean, and listen, I'm an annoying guy to be around because every time we did anything, I was in their faces, I was scrumming them, whatever. But like literally, they all turned to me and said, "See you in the final." So anyone saying that Ibn made that up is insane. That was the mood. That was the animating impulse of Ireland is we are taking this. This is ours. France had turned green. They were everywhere. There were more Irish fans than French fans around France. So I think that's exactly what happened. They got ahead of themselves. And now they're trying to play it off like it wasn't a big deal. This is a huge deal. Why they bring the entire pack, Porter, Sheehan, Furlong, McCarthy, Byrne, Omani, Van der Fleer, and Doris to play this test. It's unfinished business for them too, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. No, lekker. So we're going to have a little get together, like we said. Again, I'll put this details on the screen here. But let's get down to the nitty gritty. Your predictions.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a scoring test. I don't think it's a 13-8 genre. I think that's out the window with the lineup you're suggesting and our good friend Hendrik Cronje is talking about, and they're always right. I think this is a speed test. I'm going to say that Ireland will have to score at least 25 points to be in this game. Not even sure 25 will get there for them. So the real question is, we know the Boks can score 35 at Loftus, 30-35. They can do that. Can Ireland have enough energy in the tank defending against Boks? First 40 minutes going to be like, gladiators coming out of the pit with tigers chasing. It's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be a bloodfest, right, for 30, 40 minutes. Can Ireland have enough energy in the second half, which the Boks have been winning, by the way? Boks have been a second half team now for 2 years. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say their best chances in Durban. I'm going to say that at Loftus, it's a little bit like the All Blacks against England. It's going to be a rude awakening. It's going to be everything we hope for, which is we get to stand over, for 1 week over the Irish grave and piss all over it.
Yeah, you must remember, you mentioned it last time. Look, we didn't have one plane last year. We had two Boeings going over the stadium. I'm sure they're going to do exactly the same at least this year. So there's your first advantage. Yeah, the second one is the crowd. Last week with the URC final, the crowd was taken out of the game a little bit by Glasgow playing them, into silence, and also because of the fact that the DJ was going absolutely apeshit there. Pardon my French. And there's been a lot of things being written and said about that. And I'm sure there's going to be a little bit more restrained, allowing the rugby to take precedence. And I want to just briefly talk about this, that last final lineup where the Bulls was going to have to score on that maul. And what did the DJ do? He was playing A Sky Full of Stars and asking people to switch on their cell phone flashlights.
Really?
Instead of egging on the lineup.
That's so stupid.
Can you believe it? So I'm saying
that's the moment. That's the moment you do nothing because the crowd will carry you.
Yeah.
I don't think there'll be a problem in a test match with Boks. It's a whole different level. You would think we don't need any need for that. What do you think? How do you think is going to go? Do you think tight first half and then points in the second, or do you think they'll start scoring from the beginning? Tries in the first half.
Tight 60 minutes. And then the Boks are going to romp away. They're going to just finish it off. Because, once they beat the Bulls here, they know how to play up here. So the Irish guys like Peter Amani and those guys, they know how to play here, Colin Murray. And then Leinster came close. I mean, they would have, it was close. Let's make no mistake. James Lowe is a problem for me. I think it's going to take a bit of time to subdue them, and a lot of bad blood, a lot of niggle. But I think in the final 20 minutes, the Boks going to pull away. And something else I wanted to say with that, Frankie Smith told me, he played it against Ireland in 98. And he said, basically, they assaulted each other for 80 minutes. And I think that's pretty much what this is going to be. It's the same thing. It's physical, lots of bad blood. But I think at the end, the Boks are it's going to be close and tight for a while, but then the Boks going to pull away. I don't think the score is going to be that high, but it's going to be higher than the 13-8 we saw last year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, if I had to sort of guess a score, it'd be like 28-13, something like this, like a comprehensive beating. But I actually think there'll be preloaded plays. I think Tony Brown is good on first 20 minutes having some preloaded and creating mismatches. I mean, KLA is a mismatch for everyone in Ireland. Colby is a mismatch for anyone on the planet. I mean, try to tackle him. It's like, where is he? It's like the time I was in the final of a boxing tournament and I never saw my opponent because his jab was in my face. I just couldn't find him. Where is he? I just don't think Colby is something they're ready for exactly. I think that's where, if Tony Brown was thinking for 6 months, he was thinking, how do I get Colby, KLA, those kind of players in a 10 by 10 box with somebody. I think there'll be early tries. And I think part of it's just kicks, right? I think Pollard has a certain way of kicking. First of all, he takes on the line. He's the best running fly out there, actually, in terms of making gain line. And that's proven. I can show you the knockout figures. But also his kicks are particularly difficult to catch. I don't know why he puts on them extra sauce or something. But I just think man and ball always arrives at the same time, and they're very, very high.
Yeah, and at altitude, makes it even easier. And he, like you said, he's from here. Well, not originally. If everyone's going to remind me that it's originally from
it's a home. It's a home pitch. It's a home pitch for him, and that matters for kickers. Kickers have a certain sight line, and it's almost like having that backdrop. I actually think that Pollard is really up for this. He's been very loose on socials and on media. He looks like he wants this. I would give him the nod. I'd say, go out there, son.
Yeah.
Show me, when you were 20, you were beating All Blacks. Knock off these guys too.
One thing I wanted to ask you that I forgot to ask you is Creel or
Creel on the straight line run. We need him on some of those early breaks. I think he will finish stronger. I think needs to get that knee all the way fixed. I got a knee like that, but I'm old. So I think he needs to be serious about that thing. and let it breathe, and then come into the Rugby Championship. Be great to have him play against Australia, against the All Blacks. Right now, Creel is like gonna just run down their throats, and I think it's gonna be a problem. Now, that being said, Ringrose can also make those kind of breaks, but I do like the idea of Creel finishing breaks and setting the wings free.
But his defense is immense as well, Creel.
You would think that a lot of this, I mean, when I imagine these tries, I'm imagining also coming from Jerry's defense and from the idea of lost ball. You look at a lot of the Boks tries have been from spilled ball, from, catch you behind the line. So I do think Creel was one of the form players in 2023. And I do like the idea of rewarding form and incumbency and so forth. Love Arm. Lucky Arm is one of my favorite players in the world, but I just want to make sure that his knee's okay. I hate the idea of putting him out there and he gets a nice hard tackle, minute 5, and then he's off. And then you're like, oh, we got a 6'2" bench or whatever we're doing, and then we're in trouble.
No, he's never been the same since he came back from that operation.
There's something wrong with it. I think it needs to be proper rehab all the way.
We keep talking about Tony Brown, but someone we forget is Jerry Flannery. I saw a funny meme this week. You and I saw it both. If anyone can, Jerry can.
That's a good one.
So funny.
Hey, so Ireland has good coaching too. I was looking at you look at their coaching team. You got Paul O'Connell, everyone knows, but also Simon Easterby. They got a nice, strong scrum coach, John Fogarty. You could look at this almost as the coaching team's having a really good tussle as well. I think Jerry Flannery wants this really badly. I think there's something about Munstermen, that can really come in hard against Leinstermen. So we'll see that too.
Yeah. And then Don, I was going to the harbour, man. Love to see that. Love to see that. Anyway, yeah, so we've got that. Let's talk briefly about the French, schools team going to Argentina. I think Argentina is up for this one. Felipe Contamponi is taking charge there, ex-Argentinian. Michael Cheika, I don't think really ever made the cut for me. I don't think so. I'm excited to see what this guy can come up with. I think Argentina's much underestimated, very underestimated often. And those guys play in Europe all the way. You see Augustin Creevy even playing for Leicester. The guys are playing all the major teams. They used to be playing big rugby. They only need to gel as a national team, and I don't think that's that far off. And against a very weak French team, if ever they had a chance, this is going to be the one.
Yeah, so we had the rectification series. We've had the rectal exam series. There were the revenge series. This is the recreation series. I mean, French are not serious setting this team down there. It's tough to play in Argentina, as you know, as Bok fans know. It's when you go there. Have you ever actually been there? I've played rugby in Argentina on a semi-professional basis, and it's like the guys want to eat you there. It's this hostility, like literally security on the way to the grounds. Argentina has Gallo, has Montoya, has Kremer, has Pablo Matera back. You want to face Matera and Kremer if you're not a proper test player. I don't want to. Those guys are killers. Chocobares, the two Carreras brothers, Bertrano. Yeah, I don't think the French are serious here. And I think it's sad because they diminish the value of test rugby all the time by holding club players out. We know Jan Serfontein story. We know a lot of the stories of the fake injuries, the Bismarck stuff. But I think they should have sent a proper team down there to defend their ranking. It messes up their rankings when you have a top 4 team go down to Argentina and then lose 2 on purpose. I don't like it.
Oh, they even do that when they go to New Zealand. But it's next year. Send a B team. They made it clear quite early. We know now that they're not going to send their proper players anymore because they play too much club rugby. Like you said, club before country. At some stage, it's going to bite them. I'm sure of it.
It does every time in the World Cup, I think, because they really should always be in the finals. I mean, if you look at the tectonics of French rugby with the money, the depth, the Pro D2 league being just as good as some other leagues, top leagues, they should do better, but they're like the Proteas of cricket.
Ooh. Yeah, you went there. You went there. That hurts.
We have to go there, guys. Come on. We are really we are really bad at finishing the job.
30 runs from 30 balls with 6 wickets standing, and we couldn't make it. On the one hand,
red hot swing, right? You just take a red hot swing.
Well, they took a red hot swing, and that's why we lost the game. And I tell you what,
the catch.
No, the catch was one, and the catch was not legal, by the way. I don't know if you saw that picture. The line on the grass was the actual.
I never like any of those catches where you can come out and come in. I just don't. It always sits wrong with me.
No,
it's a weird thing.
It was a great catch in terms of the acrobatics involved. It wasn't a legal catch, number one, because if you saw the line was on the grass, a white chalk line, and the plastic buffer just moved back. So when he stepped with the ball in his hand, he stepped over the white line. It was inside the buffer. But I agree with that. I just want us to do a catch like that. I want us to do a legal catch and win. The point where we lost the game is they outplayed us, mentally again by faking that injury to pump or pant or whatever you want to call it, because that took Heinrich Klaassen out of the game.
It iced Klaassen. Yeah, I know.
First ball, I said to my son, you must not go for this damn ball now because we're going to lose it. And he went for it, nicked it, gone. I mean, but the point is.
So that's an interesting tie-in to the Boks, though. I would say this. The Irish team accomplished, a 17-game winning streak, and then had another follow-up of Six Nations. And they do a lot of it with being clever. They're like game players, like Indian cricket. Like they know how to milk. They're just good. They're good at that. And so I actually think that's part of a championship winning team. I think that's why the Boks can be celebrated for winning 1 point, is because on all those things that happen in cricket against us, we find a way to do it. Yeah. I'd almost like somehow take the mentality of Boks and put them into Proteas, and they would, they'd be sitting there with 3 or 4.
Let me tell you something about the Proteas. I wanted to say in the beginning, we lost the game, but the other end of that argument is we lost it in a final. We've never been to a final. This is the first time, and the big difference is the coach. I'll give credit where credit is due. Rob Walters is a very good coach, but the big difference he's made. You know who Tom Dawson's Squib is?
No.
He was the Ike's coach. He's now the Proteas head doctor. He's left the Ike's. He's now with the Proteas full time.
Oh, nice.
And he went with them to the World Cup last year as well. He's giving that mental edge, which is already making a difference. So I would say, listen, the T20 is not that important. It's every 2 years. It's basically an IPL in different clothing. Everybody that plays in IPL anyway. So I'm not that bothered about it. I'm worried about. I want to see the 50-over game, ODI game. That's where we're going to make it. And I want to see that we do better in tests, but that's a different story. The point I'm trying to make is that bringing rugby skills into cricket now, like you just said, to get them to take the next step.
We just need scrums in cricket and we'll be fine. If we have scrums in cricket, we win,
If that catch was a line-out, we would have made it. Anyway, listen, I see, by the way, talking of line-outs, askew line-outs, Joseph Dweba is not going overseas. He's staying with the Stormers. He's taking £1 million pay cut to stay. What do you feel about that? It's a
sad story. It's actually interesting because he's such a dynamic player, and you look at a player like a hooker, and just because of tradition, hookers throw. We don't have to have hookers throw. Like anyone can throw, right? And I actually wondered a lot of times why the 9 doesn't throw, because they're the best throwers, they're most accurate, and then you have the 9 playing that tram defense. I don't know. I would never understood it actually, but. And the way it is now, Weber cannot play for Test rugby ever with his throw.
He's the reason why he's taking the £1 million pay cut. He's no longer a pony player. So the SA Rugby is not contributing anymore. So I was watching a lot of old games the other day, and I saw the guys were throwing in with one hand. Do you remember those days?
Yeah.
And even before that, the wings were throwing the ball into the line. I mean,
they even had the over-the-shoulder boulder thing.
Like a Paul Adams style. Anyway, we've basically run out of time again. Thanks, Harry. That was lekker.
Yeah, it's going to be good this week, man. Everyone come to the capital. We're going to have beers. I'm going to buy 20 beers, put them on the table, and whoever drinks them first gets them.
Yeah, I'll see. The next time I speak to you, I'll speak to you in person. That'll be lekker.
Hey, that's going to be cool, man.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
So we'll see the low-hanging fruit there. Let's see if we...
I want to give a speech, and Ringo is going to translate. So everyone, please come and heckle us. We like heckling. We like banter.
Yeah. Just don't expect
there's no thin skins. And by the way, we're going to have some proper people there as well besides us minor celebrities.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and MW Welman.